Reflections. I'm curious to hear, well, now we've heard from two of you. Let's start with those that we haven't heard from, just reflections on the overall theme of energy, of mobility, I guess we're still on now, and how it relates to your work, for example.
Shall I start? Well, good morning. Thank you very much for having me. I'm António from Portugal, and let me start by making a question to everyone here. Who came by public transportation? This is a nice surprise, but we're close to everything here. Who came by some shared means of transportation? Or by bike? Yes, I use both. Okay, this is news. You all came by car.
No, I haven't.
Oh, I wasn't looking there. But this is one of the things usually in these panels, decisors and people who are debating this. Oh, thank you. It's on. It's people that came by car, maybe with chauffeur sometimes, to discuss how others should be using public transportation and things like that. This is good news here. Let me just say that I'm not much a geek. I'm not very much into the technical part, even though I like to absorb all information, and I really admire those who are one step ahead and working sometimes in things that we don't even understand yet. But usually we at Commute are concerned with the nowadays and the things, the problems we have now, and that should be solved. Should be solved now. And we have three words in mobility: integration, coordination, and well, the other one is very specific. It's conversion. Let me just say, integration, we've already saw it here. It's the main thing. Let me tell you, for instance, I'm here really worried because I had to leave my bike near to a train station that has no bike parking, no covered bike parking. So if it rains a lot, my bike will suffer, and maybe it gets stolen even. And then I took a train and then the subway, and as at that time they are very frequent, there's no problem of coordination. But many people has a lot of problems of coordination because, well, they have the problem of the bike, they don't have a bus with the right schedule to the train station. Now they have parking meters in the train station there, so if they pay there, well, they bring their car to Lisbon and they pay it here. This is nonsense. But then, so they don't have the coordination between the bus schedule with the train schedule, no place to leave the bike, so they bring the car. And in all the conferences and debates we have been organizing lately, it's really nice that people that defend the bike and the public transportation, they all start by saying, the thing is, car is very comfortable. Having the car is very comfortable. And until the moment we have almost personalized solutions for everybody's needs, people will still use the car. We have been building our cities for decades now due to the car. The goal is the car having a nice time, not us, the car. And until we coordinate and integrate, have integrated solutions on our phones, so that I can take a shared electric bike here, and then the bus over there. Okay. Until we have that information, and we don't have things like my daily vehicle is the bike, and every time I come to Lisbon, I take the train, and then here I usually take the subway or shared bike. But for instance, if I go to where I live in the Estoril to Amadora, my only choice is to take the car. I don't want to, but the choice is between 20 minutes and nearly 3 hours to get there. This is stupid. This is what we must solve very, very fast. I chose not to make a presentation, then I'm making it anyway, sorry. The other key word here, and now this is for cars. Cars will not disappear. But let's just say that throwing to the garbage and building new, it's not a sustainable way. The sustainable way is conversion, is reutilizing. So we shouldn't be promoting to send our petrol and diesel cars to the garbage, to build, to produce, to buy new electric ones. In some cases that's what we need to do, but in most cases, just remember, we are still producing diesel and petrol cars nowadays. In 3, 4, 5 years, those cars won't be allowed in the cities. Are we going to throw them to the garbage? 2 tons of metal and plastic and whatever? No, we must convert them, turn them into electric or whatever the next technology will be. Well, it's electric. The battery parts will evolve, but the engines we know will be mainly electric. So we should convert them, we should be converting them. We're trying to work with the government. Well, it's the 3 Secretary of State in a row that we're trying to do this, so that Portugal bets on this industry, the conversion industry. We have everything here. We now even have the lithium. We have everything here to make this a very, maybe Say wants to embrace this as well. It's not rocket science, sorry, it's been done for many years now. I'll tell you that in Holland and England and United States, the classic car people which are converting, well, one of the classic cars, so they can say that, well, I have the first Porsche 356 electric, but they have a 3-year waiting list. And now, finally, those companies are starting, because they have better legislation than we do, now they're starting to industrialize this. And it's going to be a huge market. We cannot be throwing to the garbage and to recycle everything that we use, and certainly not cars. A 10-year-old Range Rover is a hell of a car. We shouldn't be saying people, no, here's some 3,000 or 4,000 euros, throw that to the garbage, and now here's 6,000 more euros, so you can buy a new electric Range Rover. Well, which, by the way, there isn't yet. That's not the way.
Can I ask just a segue here? I'm thinking about it from a software technology solution perspective, and I'm wondering, João, if you've got something to add on that.
No, absolutely, and good morning. Thanks for having me. We've been working on this problem from the software perspective, a bit like Say, for the past 10 years now, and we met many of the difficulties that António was mentioning, and also making a bridge a bit to Pedro's first presentation. Luís' first presentation. It's much more about changing the way people are used to doing it than about the technology or reconversion or. It's not that the car is more comfortable than the other solutions. As you mentioned exactly, it's sometimes there are no other solutions. As a personal anecdote, I did drive here. I also have the same problem you do, but a lot less time apparently. Although I drive an EV, so I'm kind of hedging in that situation. But yeah, just a couple of weeks ago, I tried to take the train. It made more sense for me that specific day to take the train. And I got it in the evening, I got to the station, tried to buy a ticket, because I'm not a frequent user, so I don't have a monthly pass. Tried to buy a ticket, there were no tickets. Literally, the machine had no tickets to sell. So we're focusing on these huge challenges where we're not even figured out the small ones, like how do people who are not frequent users, how can we help them navigate, pay for, and integrate the existing mobility solutions, which we know have their problems, the frequency, the connections, the coordination, all that. But let's start by just solving the smaller parts. We're still in that point, and sometimes I have a feeling that we're trying to invent a flying car, a bit here like Pedro, but we haven't really figured out how to just make what we already have simple to use. And I've experienced this I always try to, when I travel, try to experience the public transportation systems abroad. And ours is not bad. Ours here in Lisbon is not a bad transportation system. It has its struggles. It has a lot of uncertainty around it, so it doesn't really like to follow schedules that much. So there's a lot of uncertainty. If you need to be at a specific time somewhere, you're always having to leave home a little bit earlier. But in terms of the quality of the equipment, it's not a bad system. But I think what is missing is how do we how do we create conditions for people to use it? Especially the people who are not frequent users. People who have a monthly pass, they know how to navigate. They know exactly which bus to take from point A to point B, from their home to their work, or what's the schedule for that bus. They know this. It's people who don't know how to use it, it's daunting. And that's why most people actually then defer to the subway, because it has a very clear map. And it has very clear schedules, which doesn't necessarily follow, but the schedules are there, and you know more or less that you can expect one every 7 minutes or 5 minutes in rush hour, unlike the bus. Right? But bus is the capillary transportation. So the metro can only cover points. It's for the capillarity you need the bus. And this integration of bus, metro, trains, especially suburban trains, and now the other, let's say, more softer mobility alternative like the bike or even the shared kick scooters, it's something that is has been a promise for the past at least 5 years. For the past 5 years, we've been on the cusp of having this integration. You have it in Matosinhos, apparently. Yep. So why don't we have it here? Why don't we have an app that allows me to pay for my bus ticket or my train ticket, like what I tried to do the other day? Maybe generate some credits because I'm not using the car for that. So why is this missing?
So it seems to me that there's, on one hand, the idea of behavior change, and then technology, simple technologies or integration of technologies being an inhibitor, and at the same time then also from the earlier presentations hearing that there's actually quite a lot of technological innovation that is going to be quite game-changing in the next, say, decade. Do you agree that there's something here between these both sides, like the behaviour, but then also the technology? How do they go together is, I guess, the crux of it.
No, I'm with Pedro on that one. I mean, the technology is here. It's been here for at least, I've used it for at least 5 years ago, so the technology is not the problem. There's some barriers pertaining to investment. There's some investment to be done, but there's a missing will. And the feeling that I have, and this is not a scientific, scientific study or anything like that, but the feeling that we see, or generally when we speak to people in the market, is that there is no willingness from the established players to do something like this. There's no willingness. I mean, yes, we can do some pilots. Yes, we can do some small-scale projects, etc. But there is no willingness to invest. There's no willingness to actually bring this forward because status quo makes sense for them. So why? Why bother? Why having to do this? And we've seen that financial incentives work. We've seen this with EVs. The amount of EVs that we see on our roads these days, I mean, for a country of our size and of our economic capacity, it's immense. I mean, especially around the city centers, the number of EVs is just grown exponentially. And that's mostly because of the fiscal benefits. Only applying to companies, but
not anymore. Not anymore.
I know. But for companies, if you can deduct the VAT, it's 23% less, and people and private individuals cannot do that. That's the main fiscal incentive, is deducting VAT. But that works. So we've seen that this works. Why not, put it in other projects?
Actually, you started by asking everyone how he came here, and your conclusion was that you should have come on public transportation, and that's almost like common knowledge. But let me just give you an example. So I came on a pre-sustainable motorbike, and I live in Costa da Caparica. And actually we developed a project last year where we took 12 students from here to the COP that was in Glasgow, and we gave them some, instructions. The way to evaluate their path from here to Glasgow. What's the best way to do it? But the question is, what does the best way mean? And for us, and how we developed this, we gave them 3 different types of analysis. So one is time. Time is really important. Independently if we're in a carbon neutrality pathway or not, time is critical, so you should put that into your evaluation. The second one was, of course, money. Money still, cash is king, it's still king, and it's going to be, still always going to be a vector on your decision. And the third one was CO2. So we gave them a formula, and every decision was valued upon that formula. So they could understand, okay, so now I'm going to save 10 minutes here, but it's going to cost me 100 euros. Or maybe it's going to, I'm going walking, but it's going to take 3 hours to get there. Maybe on that specific small journey, maybe I can take a taxi because it's the only thing that it's available that is fast enough to save 3 hours. And that is actually how I see the world moving forward. We have to have better tools to help us decide on what is already available for us. That's why the first thing that I said was technology is no longer the critical issue. It's not that we should evolve technology and we still have things to solve, but it's not a critical path. The critical path is how can we have the better decision to choose the best technology. And that's, I think, really the critical way to move forward is we gotta have tools that help us decide the best way possible to move, to use energy, to how to, nowadays, even myself, I work on this area. But sometimes I look at a package and I don't know what to do with it. Is this like the yellow thing that I have to dispose on the yellow? Is this common garbage? We don't have enough information in order to make the best decisions. Yeah.
So what is the role then of having, for example, a shared vision or a roadmap or a strategic plan for the future? I understand Lisbon actually has a mobility plan for 2030. I'm curious to know, do you all know about this plan, and how do you see Lisbon being prepared for the future? These technology ideas are emerging so fast. Are they part of the plan? Is Lisbon leading the way here?
I think
Do I really have to answer that?
I can go at it. I mean, I don't know if Lisbon is leading the way. I think there are certain things that Lisbon is being doing, which we only have the results on the long term. It's not, we can't evaluate most of those in the short term. They imply lots of changes. Let's see the pathways for the bicycles that are getting built. Now, I think everybody agrees that one of the main choices for people using bike is feeling safe while using the bike. Now, the discussion goes, where do you build that? Right? How do you build it? But I think that's a good discussion to have. You're not discussing if it makes sense or not. At the same time, I mean, here in Lisbon, we did lots of investment on that area, but right now, using the bike represents around 2 to 3% of the daily moves from A to B. So it's still very short. So we need to engage more and to articulate more. One of the things that we really should look into it, and Antonio gave that example. I mean, we talk about Lisbon, but Lisbon is a set of cities. It's a metropolitan area. So going from Estoril to Amadora, that should be pretty easier. It's not. And this happens not just here in this area, but on the north also. I mean, Porto metropolitan area, you have Porto, Gaia, Matosinhos, all the cities. I mean, all the cities. We need to look into them, not just as city, but from a geographical area point of view, which it's difficult because they represent different municipalities with different agendas, with different needs. So we need to figure out how to bring it together. One last thing I want to add. When we talk about either technology, if what's the role that technology needs to play around these issues, I think it's clear one thing. I'm doubtful that without technology, we are able to do what it needs to be done in the time frame that we need to do it. Let's be clear, we are 7 years away from the need to slash 45% of our carbon emissions in Europe. Well, worldwide, Europe is 55%, and that's on the short side, because really we should look into around 60 to 65. This is the number, okay, in Europe, which is crazy. We only have 7 years to do this. It's nuts, okay? So without the technology to scale this, we are not able to do it. At the same time, I fully agree again with Luís that the tipping point is us changing the behavior. We can throw the technology that we want, we can throw the money that we want. If we don't add the behavioral change, we won't meet the goals that we need to meet. This is very clear. It doesn't matter what the plan is.
So it's up to all of us and not the policies then, or is it a combination?
It's all of it.
Yeah, it's all of it.
It's our behaviors, our mentalities, it's better decision makers, it's better application of the technology that already exists, and well, I really agree with everything that's been said here. It's even though we each one faces this problem in our own, I try to be, you know, what's the English word? Transversal? No. Well, I'm not a bike guy, I'm not a public transportation guy, I'm not a tech guy, I'm not a car guy. I try to look at things in a global way and see how we can solve it. And energy, it's behind all these too. The problem is how we're doing things. We are the lucky ones. We live by the sea in Portugal, and we have these big, huge problems. Imagine the guy that lives the 200 km, well, inwards. Let me tell you, in the 1960s, we had 3,600 kilometers of railway. We have 2,500 now. We're shutting down railways and building 3 highways parallel to it. And then he said, oh, how come nobody uses the train anymore? Yeah, we know why. We're talking about integration here, and if we move a little bit from the metropolitan areas, they're not talking about integration, they're talking about having anything, something. They don't have trains, they don't have buses, they don't have shared vehicles, they don't have anything. So the only way they can come here, for instance, and unfortunately, they do have to come here or to Porto many, many times to solve things. The only way they can come here is by car. Oh, but then we charge them a lot while they're doing anything here because their car is a huge problem and we need to charge them a lot. We've said, I believe it was you said a very interesting thing. The positive incentive works a lot. But we keep doing it the negative way. Now, you pollute, you pay. Well, the people with money will thank that. Because how much do I have to, what's the bill for me to keep on polluting? This is not solidarity, this is not socially sustainable. It's the other way around. The Porsche guy will thank if the parking meters are really expensive, because the guy that works in the factory will have to, well, wake up 3 hours earlier to take 4 means of transportation to get to his work, because he cannot bring his old car anymore to the city. The other guy will thank that because he won't have traffic anymore and all the places will be for him. This is not socially sustainable. It's the positive way. We have to give incentives. Not like Tesla, for instance, we don't pollute, so we sell the right to pollute those who pollute. This is not sustainable, socially. The money, and just to end it, sorry. Of course the money is also very important, but we must think that it's in third place. environmental, social, because one without the other. We don't want to save the planet. The planet will stay here long before it gets rid of us. It gets fed up of putting up with us. So without social sustainability, environmental sustainability is nonsense. And then comes financial sustainability. It's in the third place. Otherwise, we will long be gone, but man will be living here very happily ever after. This makes no nonsense, no sense. So, yes, money is and sustainability nowadays already, in many cases, is cheaper than non-sustainable ways of doing things. That's where information is very important, and where those little technical things like apps and things and putting everything together so we can know how to do things is very, very important.
Just a short note on the incentives. One of the discussions that has also been around for a long time and kind of tying this together with the mobility side of things is the idea that companies, instead of giving their employees cars as part of their package, which nowadays they do, they could actually pay for their mobility budget. But this has been a conversation, again, that's been going on since 2017, and it's not gone any further because there's no technical implementation, and so there's no political decision on that, and we keep going. Every year this gets discussed around October when we present the next year's budget. It gets discussed. It never happens. And there's no actual explanation of why it doesn't happen. But the point with cars is, if you need a car, you'll buy one. In the moment you have one, you have a sunk cost, and you're just basically weighing the cost of parking and fuel. Nowadays it's quite high.
90% of the time it's parked.
But if you already have it, if you already have the car at home, then all the other choices become immediately much more expensive, be it sharing or being whatever it is. So you're trying to get rid of that first investment. And that kind of ties to what Antonio was saying. If I need it for even just once a week or twice a week, but I really need it for those moments, then all the other alternatives immediately become more expensive because I already paid for insurance, I already paid for the monthly cost or whatever of the car. And especially if the company is giving me that car as part of my pay package because it's not taxed or it's taxed a lot less. It's a no-brainer. So people keep getting cars keep getting in cities, and we're further away from the neutrality pathway.
Let me just add one thing. This approach of having a mobility budget to be able. So we at SEIA, we work with this big company here in Portugal, Salvador Caetano. And we built with them something that is it's already on the market called My Car Flix that does exactly this. It gives employees on companies a budget, okay, that can be either can come out from the salary, either is an add-on on top of, it doesn't matter. But you have a budget for you to spend on mobility, in this case, from the verticals of Salvador Caetano, okay? It's a closed one, it's not open. But the thing is, I agree with you. The market wants to move in that direction. It's clear. But at the same time, it's more fiscal efficient to give a car than give this kind of solution, okay? But they already exist, we already built it. Again, I know some of them sounds like future, and no, it's already there, it's on the market. If you guys go to LinkedIn, to Google, whatever, My Car Flix is already there. Your company can go on it. But at the same time, again, I say it again because it's true, policy needs to move as faster as the technology, the product, the service. It takes too long. It just takes too long.
Technology, I think I agree with you and with Luís, it's no longer the problem. We have enough technology to sort 80 or 90% of the problem.
Yeah.
It's willingness to do it, and then there's the policy side to it, which creates these distortions. And we're just speaking of two very specific ones, but the same policy could be tweaked to create positive distortions. And again, we have good examples of this, things that have worked. We should apply them more broadly to other problems.
So we've talked a lot about here on many of the challenges. I'm curious to know where you get your sources of inspiration and if you could pick out something you see happening in mobility that gives you inspiration and is kind of like a signal of hope. So what stands out? I have to say I'm very inspired by the tech side of it. This is just me, just thinking about these aspects. But I also understand, I think there's so much around mindsets, behavior, identity, and I'm curious whether that's also a generational question as well, that people's sense of identity, what they associate as their own value in their lives is very much connected to ownership versus access. This is some of the questions that I think come up, and so I'm curious, like, what do you see as a sign of hope for the future?
Let me go first. Not so much as an inspiration, but as a real story that I think can be a little bit inspiring. One of the projects that we're currently working on, it's in the US. You could not have a more car-centric culture than the US. And obviously it's in California, so it's not the core US, but it's still in the US. And a public transport operator understood that they need to put cars in stations so that people can complement the network where they don't have the connection. To use António's example, this would mean Metro or the train operator puts some cars in stations so that António can drive from Estoril to Amadora, because it's going to be the fastest way, and there's no point in making a direct connection for the amount of demand that there is for this line. So they decided to put shared cars there for free, almost for free. They're very, very cheap, almost for free, EVs. And so in the most car-centric culture in the world, a public transport operator is making this investment because they understood that it is the integration that's going to bring more users to their existing lines. So this also has an economic rationale. They want more users, they want more paying users. And the way to do this is improve the network, not by doing heavy work, but by creating connections where they're most needed.
I get my inspiration in good examples. I was going crazy because we always try to make diagnostics, and things are really bad, and they are. And sometimes the solution is a no-brainer. Why the hell we keep doing this like this? And this I mean in everything, in our behaviors, in our culture. We grew up like, when I grew up, I want to have a car. It was like the first dream of all of it. And then I want to be Michael Schumacher on the streets, like that. And my car needs to be bigger and looks better than my neighbors. And this goes for everything. The car is very emblematic in this, but this goes for everything. But sometimes we know that we see the solution. It's right there. So why the hell do we keep on going the wrong way? And I was going out of my mind. And so when I started all this, I was very activistic in political things. And I said, no, let's go to the main thing. And ideologies and politics, they're no good if we don't survive. So, and so that's when I started this path, let's say. And nowadays in Econversas, which is our news channel and things like that, we try to focus on good examples. There's all of us, we can diagnose what's wrong. There's lots of people doing that. There's a lot of people that it seems like the only occupation that are this is bad, that is bad, that is bad, but there's no solution there. So we try to focus on good examples. And that's what really inspires me and makes me go on. Like things they're doing in Northern Europe, in energy. We just stayed on mobility, we didn't talk about energy. But in energy, for instance, what they're doing in Iceland is really amazing. And in places like that. And even from companies and people that we know that they're not doing those good things for the best reasons, we keep showing those examples. You see, even these people can make good decisions and sustainable ones. And so we try to also inspire and well, the hundreds and hundreds of information I receive every day from all around the world, I usually go to the titles and the headlines and say, oh, this might be a good example. And the negative side I try to forget anymore, because before I really go crazy.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think you're pretty much right. Actually, we had a team building last Friday in our company, and of course, every company has to innovate, otherwise it will die, right? So I'm talking about innovation, and I was like, what does innovation actually means, you know? And people think, well, now I know, because I read the definition. And it's not about, so there is a difference between innovation and research and development. So if you're researching and developing, it's pretty, you know, from scratch. So even if you're building upon some other technology, but you're doing something from scratch. But the definition of innovation is that you're doing something that it's not common on, it can either be a thing or a process, just not common. It's not commonly used. And I was thinking about it, and yeah, so, you know, in order to innovate, you don't have to actually research and develop. You just have to get something that is working somewhere else and see if it fits what you're doing. Or maybe it's not being used to do exactly what you want it to do, but there are some similarities with your needs. So that is why when we're, you know, developing projects, the first thing that we always do is a benchmark. So we try to see if there's anything available so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's, you know, probably the thing that is trying, or it's more and more inspiring us to do more and more different things, and things that actually help the people that we're working with, is that you just don't have to put that much effort into innovating. You just gotta try to find something that works and fit it to the needs that they have. So I think that, you know, anyone can be innovative nowadays. We have Google, we have so many places to look for these kind of innovations. So, you know, we just don't have to follow the path that everybody's doing, that we saw that it doesn't work. So let's be innovative.
I think one of the things when I start working on sustainability, well, I've been working on technology and innovation for forever, since I remember, pretty much. But when I start working on sustainability, and when we start looking for the problems we do have ahead, especially the time frame that we have to solve, which is probably the biggest challenge that we face as society. It really touched me when we start doing some projects, some pilots to test some of our solutions, some of our products. We tested it at home, of course, but then we go to the street. We go to different countries, to different cities, and we deploy and reach out to people, to common users, and then we talk with the people that the solution or the product is designed to serve, to measure what kind of impact can we have, and then how can we scale that impact. And one of the things that for me made quite a difference was when you see your solution, product, service really changing people's life for the better. When they come to you and say, listen, are we keeping this around? Because, you know, I haven't brought my car to work for the last 2 months. And this is very cool, because now either I go on bicycle, one of them told me, which is far much better for me, you know? And I go and say, even when it's raining, well, you know, when it's raining, it's a little more dangerous, but even so, it's not that bad, you know? And other example was this kind of groups start, you know, we do these pilots with a few thousand people, And then these subgroups start talking and building on WhatsApp and Facebook to find different routes and ways to do the integration with the public transportation or whatever transportation, because it doesn't exist in some of those places. So they figure it out, and then they push for the municipality to change schedules, you know? And then two things happen. One, it's impossible to you to be indifferent to this when you see the change that you can induce. And it's not us doing the change. Let me be clear on this, okay? We just put something on there, and then people just grab it and move, which takes me to the second point, which is we don't need to figure it out everything. We just need to figure out where to start, and then we will figure out the rest of it. And this is the main takeaway that I take from our products, because usually when you design a product, you have the tendency to think about everything, all the scenarios, how it's going to happen, and this scenario, and this use case, and that, no. Just let the user, the citizen, figure it out also, and they will come out with usages and ways of using your solution that we never thought about it, never crossed our mind, to be honest, okay? And those usually are the most impactful, and it really changes the way our team starts looking at it. Yeah.
On that note, we're going to wrap up our panel now and have another presentation. I just have to see if we have our next speaker here. Do I get a nod from the audience here? I'm looking for Philippe. Yes, perfect, great. Okay, so thank you for the panel. We're going to now have Philippe come up on stage. Philippe Vasconcelos is the founder and managing partner at S317 Consulting, specializing in the design and implementation of energy transition, water, carbon, and ESG projects. I hope that's a good introduction. If you come up on the stage, we'll say thank you to our panel, and we'll have some Q&A after this as well. So thank you.